Okay, welcome to the May 1st Human Relations Commission meeting. This meeting, I confirm that there's a quorum, so we will call it to order. Let's review and approve minutes. You should have gotten that in the email. If you need to take a minute to just look at them. I don't actually see them. Oh, there they are. I think it's this one. It's short. Take a look if you've got any edits. Any thoughts, let us know. And if not, I'll take a motion to approve them. Great. Anyone wants a second? Second. Any abstentions or against? Excellent. The motion to approve the minutes has been passed. Let's look at the financial update. Any news? Director.
It actually, on the inside of it, particularly as it relates to payroll, but we're still in the midst of this negotiation. The mayor's budget has been released, and ours is a status quo budget.
Okay, can you tell us how much less that is than what you proposed?
I don't have the exact number,
right,
but none of the positions or stuff that we asked for showed up in it. So it is as it is. We're basically where we are. I think there was an addition of the $10,000 that was taken out of our budget last year that was given to Planned Parenthood, that was replaced, which was not a gain. And then for one of our community events was funded for $15,000.
Okay. Okay, I have a question about next steps in terms of, is there a way, what way you want to go about advocating for this? I don't know what they've told you. And then did you get any like cost of living increase or anything like that for staff? Like just or is it exactly the same?
Well, everything's the same. There's already going to be built a cost of living increase that all Metro will get. We will get all of that. We also had asked for, excuse me, salary adjustments for staff using comparisons with other departments, and that was also not approved.
Okay. What do you think we do next?
Well, I think what we can do is we can send you the budget around, and I think if we look at the things that are most important and agree with those are, and I would tend to side with the staff issues that we're asking for, we can ask the council, and if they agree and somebody carries that, then we can attempt to get another amendment. That's how we got the Title VI, and Ms. Cockrell was through amending the mayor's budget through the council process last year.
And since we lost the mobile seminar, do we get to keep that money?
Yeah, that money, all that money
is still in.
Is still in there.
Okay. Okay. Anybody got any other questions?
If I'm not mistaken, it was a little bit more than that. Okay. I was thinking somewhere like 10. Yeah, it's for the training we do with the police officers.
But we don't do that anymore.
No.
So can that money be reallocated?
Yeah, if it's in the budget, it can be reallocated.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to send us what?
I'm going to send y'all the budget ask.
As submitted.
As submitted.
Okay.
And we'll probably highlight those things that we think are most important. And then we can talk about speaking to various council people about those issues, and we'll attempt to find someone who would carry whatever amendment for us.
And could you also send us the budget as approved for this year so we can see that?
Yes, yes.
And what is the process within the council as far as looking at the budget going forward?
They have to have the budget approved, I believe, by the second Tuesday in June. So what has happened the last couple times is on that last meeting before they vote to approve the budget, they have a list of amendments. And like last year, there was like 24, 25 amendments. And ours was one of the 4 that actually got approved to be added into the budget.
Okay, does that go through a council budget committee before it goes to the full council? That's what I'm
Yes.
trying to understand.
Yes, it goes through a committee because it gets added to a resolution, and the resolution is what amends the budget.
Okay. So we need to hit that council committee that's working on the resolution.
Yes, and also the general counsel, who several of them last year came out of the committee with 6-0 that still didn't get past the floor.
In terms of the mobile seminar, do y'all know what the status of any of that work is?
Oh yeah, we've been trying to work with a couple of go-betweens to set up a mediated meeting. And that's not happened yet. And with the passage of the legislation to abolish the COB, which would return the investigation of officer misconduct to what it was before the COB with the same people, that has created a further point of contention with the police department and us.
So what happens to that money?
What money?
The money that's allocated out of the budget by charter amendment to fund the COB.
Oh, it's still, for this year, if nothing else, it's still going to fund the COB, although it may take on some other iteration that I don't know what that looks
So
like.
the money doesn't go away, money stays there. Okay.
Okay, and I think the commission to be able to see the budget, because it is really impressive. There's a lot of programming around it, like we were gonna have community meals, and staff came up with a lot of this. So I just think it's not insignificant what they said no to, in terms of just like a strategic direction. So, because, budgets are where you basically say you're gonna focus, right? And where your values are. So I do think that warrants a conversation with us, and then us being able to, if it is June, basically this is the month that we would need to start talking to our council members. And then prioritizing, I hate to say that, but prioritizing what we want the most and the least so that we can get at least some of that, like last year. So I think that'd be great. And then, the COB is a big conversation that came up at our executive committee meeting because, the commission has been really involved with that, particularly prior to the COB's establishment. So I think Davey and the team are really eyeing that very closely in terms of what that might mean for us and our role, because clearly it's kind of being stripped of its power, even if it continues to exist as a body, it sounds like. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that right now.
Well, no, it does strip it of all of its power. It can't investigate. It only reviews. So any incident of officer misconduct would not be investigated by this body after July 1st. It would all go back to the Office of Professional Accountability within the police department, that between forget the years, 2011 through 2015, and those years might not be correct, but it was 98% of the complaints filed against officers were found in their favor. And that was in a couple Nashville publications. Oh, I can't recognize you.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Deaconess, yes.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Forgive me, Madam Chair, for engaging in institutional sexism by looking at my colleague. Forgive me, first of all, for being late, and I need to apologize to two of our members because I tried to run them over in the middle of the street. I'm sorry. I was trying to find parking, and I'm old. I'm very concerned about this oversight. I am. I'm very concerned about this oversight issue, and I just want to give a brief analysis. I work for the United Methodist Church in the Racial Justice Office, and when we were created in 1968, we were that office was given investigatory power to investigate allegations of racial harassment and discrimination against pastors, against staff, et cetera. In 2008, there was a move to remove that investigative power. And the reason that was given was, well, we're becoming such a litigious society that we need professional people to be doing these kinds of investigations. And what has happened is that the number of cases that get settled by just dismissing them has gone up exponentially. It is virtually impossible for the foxes to guard the hen house, much less police themselves. And so this, to me, has to be, for me, this was a very strong priority because people of color and particularly people from immigrant communities are disproportionately the subject of misconduct by our police force. And I think we've just got to get on top of that, and to hand it back over seems to me to be a step backwards. We have not recovered in the United Methodist Church in this country. Now we're 95% white, because at least in part, because we did not stay true to the idea of having a separate department that is doing the investigation. And so I just really think, I feel very strongly about this.
So two things. First, are you aware of anybody in Metro having prepared a comparison between the past legislation and the existing authority of the COB, so one can look at, where those changes are? And number two, I wasn't able to be at the last executive committee meeting, but I would hope that we can look at how this commission might be able to fill in a gap. Because when I read through the legislation briefly, it appeared to me, and I didn't read it through very carefully, it appeared to be that the COB retains some capacities, minimal as they may be, but there are some capacities, and I think we need to understand what those capacities are. And then I think we need to think about how we might work within the powers that we have to fill in some of the gaps.
I'll send everyone a copy of the legislation.
Has anybody analyzed the legislation?
Excuse me?
Has anybody analyzed the legislation to the extent that you know?
Well, we reached out to see where Metro was, and they were looking at it. And so a couple of community organizations are looking at it. They've also approached the U.S. Attorney here. So there's quite a bit of concern in the community about this thing right here. Because one of the things that it does is it reduces the number. So it goes down to 7, I believe. And then they put in a couple things that don't make sense, like the police academy requirement that has to be done within 6 months of your appointment. But then sometimes the police department only runs one citizens academy a year. And so they actually say in the statute that if the person does not complete it within 6 months, then they're not on the commission. So there's a lot of administrative stuff with it. But when you read through it, you'll see that it becomes an advisory review, and they don't have the level of access that they had to information. Basically, it limits them to whatever information you and I could request.
Okay. So I think basically the bottom line is, I mean, I know this team is monitoring it, but we've just got to be clear on, and this is very fast. You said July 1st. Yeah, this is really fast. I'm assuming you're also in conversation with the current COB as it is with the ED and all that.
Yes.
I mean, she gets to stay
Yes,
in this
as a-
new
yes.
rendition, but she's rendered powerless. So, you know, it's not an oversight board like you're saying, Gerlinda. It's like a rubber stamp board or something like that.
Well, it's not even rubber stamp because nothing goes
There's
back
nothing to
to
stamp.
them.
Yeah.
But just looking at it, there's a lot that whatever administration is in could do to strengthen it without violating the law. So with the change that's coming up, this has to be in effect July 1. Then a couple months later, there'll be a new administration. So it's going to be a minute before that COB thing settles down into something. But yes, we are watching it, and we may even propose a statement here shortly that we would, again, I know y'all just went through the whole thing on statements, and we down on statements, but
Just go through the flow chart.
but as the chair was saying, MHRC had been a proponent for the COB and had been involved in that for a number of years. And its sudden absence is concerning.
I wonder if it's also an election thing. I mean, I'm watching the time, I know, but an election thing. Does it preclude? Does the legislation preclude the mayor creating a creative response to this, whereby he has an office that has these request abilities that the COB doesn't, and then thereby can give them to the COB to comment and look at, you know, these kinds of, right? I mean, I don't know. Anybody know? Okay, that's one thing I think would be interesting, because then we can put pressure elections-wise on whoever's coming in. Okay, because it's 4:20, I'm going to keep moving. There is something really interesting that the team has been up to, basically just, you know, day in and day out until it surfaced into something pretty powerful for the commission, which is called the Feedback Project. Oh, is it? Yeah, the Feedback Project. And I'm going to let whoever wants to explain it to us.
Is Mark here? Okay. Mark Etherly has been working diligently on trying to bring together a coalition of folk with the Food Project as the lead organization of trying to actually do an in-depth look at the food delivery system for indigent folk. And it came to a head. We've got a group that has agreed. We submitted to council for the COVID funds, and a month ago they approved it for, we had asked for $840 some odd thousand, and they approved $621. What this will do is over a 2-year period, it will assess the food delivery system that is an unofficial thing to find out where are the gaps, what can be improved. The food project will act as a lead organization, but it's comprised of another 7 or 8 community organizations that are involved in that also. It creates a great opportunity to really see how this system operates. And again, it's just to assess what it does, and hopefully from that, we can actually make it better. One of the things, the funds that will be approved at this next council meeting will be placed with the Community Foundation for distribution, and the commission has been tasked, or will be tasked with, when all this is passed, with selecting the board members who would serve on this board for the dispersion of those funds. I think it's huge. I think it's really shows what MHRC can do in bringing together divergent community groups working on the same thing, give them a skeleton to work with, but also help them, as we were able to in this case, to apply for funds through Metro. We showed up with them, we advocated with them, and they cut it some, but the primary partner, the food project, because we did get funded, they notified us a couple of weeks ago that in their conversations with another large health provider here, that they've committed to giving them $100,000 to make up that difference. So the fact that we were able to basically come up with the idea, bring folk on board, because sometimes in this nonprofit industrial complex, as many of you know, it can be a dog-eat affair. But Mark played wrangler and got us over the line with it. So.
I am aware that within the last 10 years, the Metropolitan Health Department had an effort to identify food deserts in Nashville and put together a coalition of groups. So I would hope that this group would go back and perhaps plumb within the health department what information they had and what efforts they had at that point in time, so they're not recreating the wheel.
Well, and this is not, we know where the food deserts, but there is a delivery system, whether it's real or imagined, within all of the groups that do food in Nashville. But you have food organizations that literally throw away food.
Right.
Yeah.
So no one has ever did a deep dive on what that system, even though they don't think they're connected. But if I drop by your spot to get a box and then go somewhere else and get a box, me getting a box from both of your places connects you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they had gotten it. It wasn't just food deserts. It was also identifying what the food sources or food delivery systems were. Just a suggestion. They check into the health department and see what information they still have.
Okay, great. Okay, nothing more on that one. Let's talk about inclusivics, and then we'll talk quickly about stadium, if that works. You see that report? Yeah, you see that great report. All right, I think we went through it with a PowerPoint a couple months back, but Ashley, let us know what we should be thinking about during this event tonight and this report.
Yeah, so everybody has a copy. I want to point out there's a printing error in it, and I'm too embarrassed by it for y'all to think that we just made a printing error. Some of the coloration is off, and specifically if you flip to the page where there's like a added paperclip one, we describe what's wrong in it because it's a pretty consequential error in the printing. So that's just what's up with that, and we're trying to get some replacement.
No, they're going to replace it all. They're going to reprint all of it.
We demand.
Yes.
So this is not new information to y'all. Like Mariam said, we've previewed it here, but we hope you like how it looks. We're going to be getting these on the desk of council members tomorrow before the regularly scheduled meeting so that we know it gets into their hands. And the sort of rollout, the community side of it is that we've planned, I think it's 8 events or so, with the first one tonight just right across the hallway here. The rest of our team is in there setting up right now. So we've really all thrown in on organizing these events. And so we've blown up a number of images that we've selected throughout here. I think it's about 12 different images, and we've created just some guiding open-ended questions for, audience reflection, comments, feedback, that sort of thing. So that's what's being set up across the hall. And we've got about, 50, 55 RSVPs of people that said that they're coming tonight. So we'll have some light refreshments, and, if the half the people that RSVP'd showed up, then we'll have a good crowd. And what we want to ask for y'all, as you're able to, we have 8 others that are scheduled in different community centers across Nashville, once a week, starting this week. So the handout that lists them all is across the hall. It would have made sense to have it here, but we would love for y'all, the one that's in the area where you live in the city, if you're available that day, just to be able to come. We've tried to spread them throughout the county. So they're at Hadley Community Center, Hermitage, Luby, Southeast, Madison, McCabe, and Shelby are the 8 locations. And again, just starting every week, starting now. I'm going to text our team over there and I think ask them to bring it in. But do y'all have any thoughts or questions while I see if we can get them over here? Or Davey, what do you want to say? Okay, Crystal's on it. Thank you, Crystal.
Well, I'm just excited, and again, I'm grateful to Ashley for all of her work. And yes, the printer will have to replace these. We were even contemplating whether to wait until we could get the new ones instead of releasing it after we had said that we would do it on May 1. But I think there are several things that these numbers will show that I think, there's been some improvements, but there's still areas that really could use some come up. One particularly that stands out is the Hispanic Latinx representation amongst the overall 10,000 employees of Metro. Only 315 are Hispanic. And so just the question surrounding why is that the way that is and what needs to be done to improve that. Another place of interest to me is the organizations that do social service work are overrepresented in people of color and the lowest paid. The departments that do regulatory policy work are overrepresented in whites, and they're the highest paid. Those are just a couple things, but there are a multiplicity of things that jump out at me.
I was going to say, this is obviously a lot of information, but also when y'all are looking at it, I'm super interested in like what questions you have that's not answered in here, or like what would help paint a fuller picture of what it's like to be a worker here, or how people do in different ways, for thinking about, we've got a lot here that can inform policy, programming, that sort of thing, but what other research, actionable research, would help add to it? So some things that I'm thinking about is like, is there anything interesting if we analyze like overtime pay, which is not included in this, and how that looks, or if we were to acquire like retention and attrition data to show who are the employees that are leaving every year, because this is only about who is here. We know that people are leaving and what that can tell us about all sorts of things. So also, like, none of this involves talking to real humans. This is all data, and data is important, but workplaces and lives are more flavorful than just data, right? So thinking different ways that we can add on to it while we are using it to move conversations forward in concrete ways in Metro. So thanks.
And the finding, y'all might have just said this, but the finding of kind of things start out the same and then it starts to, and there's nothing around that, which is what you're speaking to. Like, why does it, and do you know, do the numbers fall off? So it is attrition, like there's a loss of people, or they just seem to stay? Can you tell that? Maybe you can't even tell that.
I can tell you how many employees there are, like the number of employees. So, you know, if in year one there's 800 people.
I guess it's hard to know if they're the same people.
Yeah. I mean, when we're having data only, right, we can't really say this is because this or that is because of that, but this is a snapshot, right? So to say more beyond a snapshot, we need to use other methods.
Okay. Yeah, Ben.
So I have a question in terms of, because we talked about waste management, is there data about services that have been privatized and that are no longer like...
Yeah, this is a
as
topic
employees?
that I would love. So I've been thinking about that, and I don't have the right answer, but I think like looking at our procurement process, we would be able to see what contracts are being given out, because I would imagine having some knowledge in this area, probably like others, you know, we know that staffing agencies and wherever else employees are finding their ways into those roles probably don't have the benefits that Metro Pay has, or the minimum wage that we have, which is $18 currently right now. So I think, yeah, I think there's a lot that we could look at. We just have to figure out the data side of that.
Okay, great. What would you like to be the outcome of this event today? As in, what would you like as commissioners to support with?
Well, we would actually like for you to support with your comments also. You'll be given a pad, and what we're trying to compile are the questions, the thoughts, the impressions that individuals get from this information, so we can go back and try to compile them and see if there's something that shows up in there that we can look at further. So there's another thing here that I like is the 51 department snapshots that are in the back that give you a look at each department that this covers. It doesn't cover MMPS, Airport Authority, NES. It might even be a couple more somewhere. But it doesn't include those. But these are the 51 departments within Metro that gives you a breakdown of what those departments look like. And some of them are really telling just on the surface. Again, the police is 75% male, 75% white. A lot of them don't live in the county. That's always been a concern to me, in that we've done a lot of hiring outside of the city and the state, and even with laterals, we did a couple classes with lateral officers who come here with 10, 15 years experience. So theoretically, someone could leave from Iowa and coming to work in Nashville, but pull up in Wilson County. And so they're not a part of Nashville, but they come to work every day in Nashville. They don't have roots in Nashville, but they come to work every day in Nashville. and they go back and live in a place that's very similar to the place they came from. Sociologists have written a bit about this, that early on there was a couple books that have since been removed from police training that described shift work like a concrete jungle. That was part of their training material. And when you train people in this mindset and you're not connected to this area, and you don't know it, then I don't know, it's concerning.
So do we know if similar analyses have been done in other metropolitan areas?
Not to my knowledge.
Because I always hate to go to recreate the wheel, and lots of rich information here, and I would hope that we figure out some way to use this information in a way to have some positive change, positive impact. Not sure what that would be, what that would look like. And so to the extent that there are other municipalities that have gone this route and have come up with some solutions that would inform sort of where we can go with it.
Well, I'll say this, Metro uses it. They have used the previous iterations of the report. We sent this out to HR and DEI and met and talked about it, and they said that they were using the old reports, that they particularly liked the individual department snapshots, so that we basically prepped them for whatever work that they're going to go and attempt to do. They at least get this data shot of the area. But I've also seen it work in ways that it creates conversation around certain policy initiatives. That, yeah, there are stories and there are policies and there's everything else that go with data, but data in and of itself can show you disproportionateness, which creates now for discussion and hopefully the development and implementation of plans that would address the disproportionateness that shows up in the number. Like for me, when we do this again, we should be doing a little bit better at hiring Hispanics and Latinx people. I mean, so I think that there are some there's some right now value to this, in that this is Metro's workforce, and the department heads get it. It gets dispersed widely through Metro and through our community organizations. So the other reports, I believe, had some impact, and I think as we get a little bit better and actually expanding on it, I think this will possibly have greater impact.
The big thing that comes up for me, and I think this is probably something you're already cooking up, is, and I can't fully kind of figure out what it looks like, but it's like, if you don't have residency here, and then you don't have representation here, but you work for the city here, like, are you basically outside of the conversation that, and I think that's basically of the local population, because your concerns are not part of that conversation. And I'm talking about, like, anything and council, et cetera. Like, are you in conversation around the things that are affecting Nashville, right? And so then it makes me think, how do the demographic changes in Nashville impact who works here and who can work here? Because, like, we don't have enough housing. We don't, so then are people forced to move out? What's interesting is, like you said, the people that are paid the less are people of color, and they're the residents. So they're making it work in the most impossible way. But others that can leave are, and therefore are not even involved. And so I think about things like the stadium or development projects or housing conversations where, like, they're completely, essentially carving themselves out of those concerns. And then what does that mean for you serve the city, but you're not engaged in the conversation that is affecting the city. And then why? Is it because you can't afford housing? Is it because there is no housing? You know what I mean? So that kind of story is really interesting to me. And I think that can be gotten at in terms of demographics and stuff around the city. And then obviously like an internal survey, an anonymous internal survey would be really cool. I'm guessing we can't get our hands on that. Or maybe HR will be interested to talk to y'all about, hey, if we were to do an internal survey, what would be on those, what do y'all think should be those questions? And that would be really cool. But mostly painting this picture of how residency impacts your level of awareness and engagement on the concerns of the people that live here. If you are police, if you are social services, which we are seeing social services do live here, but if you are administrative, if, you know what I mean? And I don't know of any legislation that's done, not legislation, but policy that's done in other cities that requires people to be residents. If they work for the city, you can't do that.
Well, there's a state law against that.
Well, yeah, I guess that was preempted. We have to be Davidson County residents to be on this commission. You know what I mean? So that's interesting that in some ways we feel like that's important and in other ways we don't. And maybe we don't have enough workers or something like that. But yeah, that's what comes up for me. Okay. Yes.
I'm just going to say it to say it. One thing that's very much related to this that I think is just interesting because I didn't realize it. So I gave a public comment at the council meeting 2 weeks ago, which is the once every 90 days, anybody can sign up if you live in Davidson County, and you can talk about anything you want for 2 minutes as long as it's not pending legislation. So I had to go and I had to show my ID and that I am a Davidson County resident. However, if you want to speak on any pending legislation, you do not have to be a resident. And so I didn't realize that those rules were different. And I just think it relates to what you just said, right? Yeah.
Tons of loopholes around what it means to be a resident and what you get to do and talk about and influence. Okay, so that's what would be an interesting, cool thing to talk about later.
Yeah. And so,
yes.
last thing, the dates are listed here. Maybe, if you see a day and you're like, that's my neighborhood, I can definitely be there and put it on my calendar right now. Would love to know that. They're an hour, chill, casual environment. We can send them out via email as well, but would love to see y'all in our community events outside of our monthly meeting here.
If each one of us could commit to going to one of these, I would really appreciate that. I think it's really important for us to be involved in this and to push it up. Also, if you have contacts in the community, share them. If you're on social media, let everybody know, because I think the more we make a splash about it, the more it can have the impact that we're intending to have. Okay, well, thank you, and yet again, excellent work. And so from what I understand, our marching orders are to be engaged in this event and write down any issues that, are coming up. Okay, great. And I'll just quickly say, so the stadium third reading passed last Tuesday. I'm guessing most folks knew about that. It was pretty intense on all fronts. And honestly shocking to think of all the work that's been done to try to move people, and nobody moved. So after all that effort, 2 people moved? I didn't catch that. Who? Oh, I totally missed that. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a huge win. And nobody from the no moved to the yes.
Correct.
So that's all something to celebrate. The thing to celebrate was Nashville was very present. Mm-hmm. People came to that microphone that had never done such a thing before. And that a hearing was a result of advocacy of citizens who wanted a hearing. So it really, yet again, showed Nashville is present to the things that are happening to the city, whether the representatives are or not. Okay. Old business? I don't have anything. No, and we have no public comment. So I think we can adjourn to get ready for the event, if that makes sense to everybody. Anything y'all want to bring up? No? Okay, awesome. Then can I get a motion to adjourn? Second?
A second.
Anybody against? Abstain? Excellent. Our meeting is adjourned. See you guys in about 15 minutes, 10 minutes.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.